Hi, I'm Sue Greenwald here with the Empowered Light Holistic Expo. Our next expo is next weekend, April 26th through 28th. And I'm here with Rebecca Cohen, the founder of The Path to Heal. And Rebecca's going to introduce herself and explain what she's doing at the expo. How are you, Rebecca?
I'm really good. I'm excited for the expo. I think I started with you the first expo you did, and I
Yes.
haven't missed
Yeah.
an expo. And it's fun because people come back each expo and they remind me that I talked to them 2 years ago and they bought this book or they did that with me, and that they get my newsletter. And so I really look forward to going because it's been such a successful event for me.
Well, thank you. It's been a lot of fun, and I like the fact that you're always in the same location, so people
I like
can
that
find
too.
you. So tell us a little bit about how you got started with what you do.
Okay, so I wasn't one of those psychic type people who knew when I was 5 years old that I had some special skill. I went to college. I went to business school. I got my MBA. I worked for J.P. Morgan Chase for first Citibank, then J.P. Morgan Chase for 15, 20 years. I became a senior director in banking. So I was analytic. I did numbers. I did marketing. And what happened to me was that I got sick. I got Lyme's disease, and
Wow.
I got really sick. And Lyme's disease is a disease that if you get antibiotics in the first 3 weeks, then 95% of the people are fine. And I got antibiotics, just should have been in that category of being fine, and I wasn't. So there's 5% of people who get Lyme, get treated immediately, and they're not. And I was really sick. And it was my infectious disease doctor who said to me, "We can't help you anymore. We're not going to put you on long-term antibiotics. We don't believe in that. So go look." And I had already started to experience some alternative medicine and some muscle testing from my chiropractor. So I just went in those directions. And I went out to visit my cousin in California, who's a physical therapist, and she had a lot of alternative things in her practice. And she set me up with something called Body Talk. And Body Talk is a healing system where you muscle test through a protocol and you find out what is not connected to what. And I was so sick. I don't even know how I made it to California, but that was the start of my recovery. And as I was recovering, the banking industry collapsed and I lost my job. And it was very shocking to me because I had a important role within the organization, but it had collapsed. And I finally said, okay, what does this mean? I'm sick. I fell in love with this modality, Body Talk. Banking's not the place that I want to be anymore. Let me take a chance. Let me take a severance package and see what I can do. And so at that point, I was working with Body Talk and I studied it and I loved it and I still loved it. And I would have been happy to stay using Body Talk as a healing tool. I had become a practitioner. But something was beginning to happen to me when I was doing Body Talk sessions. And Body Talk, as I said, is a modality where you muscle test. And I was going through the protocol for my clients. I had a small practice and they have a little bubble on the bottom that you muscle test. And it kept taking me to other modalities. And I kept asking, okay, am I supposed to do Body Talk anymore? And I kind of got a no. It wasn't aligned with me anymore. And I kept asking different things. Should I do Reiki? Should I send this person to a doctor? So what should I do? And I kept getting no, 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 no. And finally, and I muscle test like this, and this is a yes, and this is a no. And I finally asked, do I have to create something? And I got this massive yes. And it was like, ding, 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 ding. And it only took you a month to ask the right question. And
Excellent.
from there, it's been a whirlwind of receiving information. And so I received what I'm calling 10 years later, the path to heal. And you can see that it's this very beautiful path that each thing on the path, I also muscle test this protocol, and each place on the path brings you to somewhere different. And then once I go there, I have this beautiful manual that I've also created. And then it brings you to a different page in the manual. And so that when I get to a certain page, the point of what I'm doing is helping my clients understand why they are holding on to anything painful, anything stressful, both physical or emotional, rather than release it. So the basic premise of this system is that we hold on to something rather than releasing it because somehow it keeps us safe. And what this system does is it decodes why your headache, your conflict at work, your toe pain, your laryngitis, whatever it is, it decodes why, very personally, that keeps you safe. And once you get the insight as to why your laryngitis is keeping you safe, that's a good one because it's very indicative of not wanting to express your truth to the world. So once you get the ahas, the very personal ahas, going back to different wounds in your life, then I use crystals, tuning forks, essential oils to raise your vibration so you can more quickly let go what's bogging you down and release it. And once you let go, the healing takes place naturally because who we really are naturally healthy.
Well, how long would something like that take if someone went to you for a treatment or a session, I guess is what you would call it? How long would it take for you to get to the root of their cause?
So we are built in layers. We have layers and layers and layers and layers and layers. So with one session, I can have a very different experience from my clients. So somebody came to me early on with lupus and a lot of pain, had one session. That's all I ever saw her. And 10 years later, she's still pain-free. I don't experience that every time. There are some people who actually work with me every week for 2 years and very slowly, very incrementally release layer after layer after layer. But what they all report, anyone who works with me, is that they feel lighter after each session. They feel like something's been released, and that even if they're on an uphill slope towards health, they might have little dips, but it keeps on going up. Wow. So I love those once and done people, and I love them all. And sometimes it happens at the expo because I'll be doing 10 minutes at the expo, and somebody might come up to me a year later and said, I felt great for the last year. Thank you so much for giving me 10 minutes at the expo. And I'm like, okay, yeah. You're welcome. And I never heard of them again. I probably don't even remember them. And then, of course, there are those people that work with me on a long-term basis. So.
Yeah. So you teach this to others. In fact, you teach it how they can become practitioners of your method.
Yes, I do. And that's probably my favorite thing to do. And I do a lot of one-day classes, which I will be explaining more about at the expo. And I actually set it up this year that we have the expo, and a week later, I'm teaching 4 different classes. On the first day, I'm teaching 2 classes to help you learn how to manifest, learn how to muscle test, and then go through very specific protocols to learn how to manifest. And then with Everything Path, it's very grounded because you have a very specific protocol, and then it's very spiritual because I'll give you the tuning forks and the crystals to raise your vibration and heal. So I am teaching, and then on the Sunday, a week after the expo, I'm teaching people to channel, and I'm also teaching people about crystal grids. So I'm teaching 4 classes in 2 days, and you can see that on my website, thepathtoheal.com, or you'll see it at the table at the expo.
Well, let me ask a question. If somebody really has like zero experience, like they are just off the street, are they going to be able to learn to channel from taking your class?
It depends. It all depends on one thing only, and that is how much you trust yourself.
Oh.
Because muscle testing and channeling, they're not hard. I actually taught a muscle testing class a week ago. It took me 10 minutes to teach muscle testing, and the rest of the hour was, practice. Wow. Because it's just and everybody in that class learned. There were like 20 people there. It was amazing. Boom, done. Channeling is a little harder because you have to be willing to embrace what's coming in. And when I teach channeling, I help everybody with all these tools. That's the beauty, the diffusing of wild orange essential oil and using the crystals that I know because of the way it's been given to me, that only loving energy can come in this way. So then I really encourage people to open up and trust.
Right. Okay.
And I have found that probably 75% of the people who are in that class, by the end of it's only 3 hours. By the end of the 3 hours, they're doing it. Whether they continue has to do with how interested they are, how much they trust it, and if they feel like it's benefiting them.
Yeah, I like what you said. I use muscle testing all day, every day, in little and large, little and big decisions, and it's really part of my life. And there's so many techniques to it that everyone can use it, and so it's great that you're that it just makes it easy for them.
It makes it easy for. That's one of the reasons I do these small classes, and usually I'm not charging for them, because one of the things that I received is that's something that's for me to give away for free to help people learn how to so easily get in touch with guidance.
Right. I love that. Thank you. Thanks for doing that. So tell me a little bit about the 2 talks that you'll be doing at the Expo. We've got you down for Friday night at 7 and then Saturday at 11:30 in the morning.
And the Friday night at 7 is not on the program, so come.
Oh, yes, I'm glad you said that. Thank you. Yeah, we put it on, of course, after the program was printed. So we're trying to promote that verbally and through social media.
Right. So the Friday night one, I am going to focus on lifting your manifestation vibration. So people always use the word, we're going to get into high vibe energy, and I like to simplify things. And what does that mean? I like to take the mystery out of things to make it accessible for everybody. So one of the things I'm going to be giving away at this expo is this card, and on the front of it is a mandala. And if you stare at this mandala, it helps you lift your manifestation vibration. But the other thing, and I just received the simple message of what it means to be living in a high vibration. And I received 7 concepts. And the first one is choosing nutrition that fills you with joy and happiness. Number 2, choosing exercise that fills you with joy and happiness. Number 3, a non-judgmental, compassionate outlook, especially regarding differing opinions and points of view. Now I'm getting the chills. This is good. 4, easily recognizing what you love about your life. 5, living and interacting as truthfully as possible, even if it's sometimes uncomfortable. 6, connecting with others from the heart. And 7, trusting that the universe is kind.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So these 7 steps were blocked to. And everybody is blocked to them a little differently. So what I'm going to do on my Friday night talk is figure out what in the group energy, who is blocked to which of these 7 things. And then do a healing session with the modality, the path to heal, the one we've been talking about, to understand what is keeping the group blocked. So let's just say the group is blocked to trusting that the universe is kind. Most probably, anyone, I never see it as random. If you sit down at my lecture, there's some reason.
Yeah, there's a group dynamic there. There's a past life issue or whatever. Yeah.
There's something, and it could very easily be past life, or it could very easily be everybody who sat down has an issue with their mother that made it hard for them to trust that the universe is kind. And I'm just making that up. It's always something. It's always something universal. And I have found through the healing is I'll tell the story. Like at 2 years old, our mothers did this, that made this happen. And it's not exactly the same for everyone, but the energy is the same for everybody. And so, so after I muscle test and use these protocols to tell the story, I'll find out who relates and who doesn't relate. And if somebody, it's different if it's a group of 5 people or 20 people or 50 people. So we'll see who shows up. But if it's a very small group, then everybody will get an intimate feel of what this is about for them and how it connects, as much as they're willing to share. I won't bring out things they're not willing to share. And then the whole group will get the healing energy. If there are 50 people there, then the people will have to figure it out a little bit more on their own, but I will be guiding them, but I will be available to talk to each one afterwards if they come up to my booth. But I have never done one of these group healing sessions where people don't relate. 95% of the people relate every time.
That's really exciting.
And so then they release that wound. Right. And what happens is that when they release that wound, they're now going to be one step kinder to believing that the universe is kind. Right. And once you believe that the universe is kind, then it's very easy to manifest. Manifestation is natural, simple, because you look out there and you trust and you only have positive feelings. Right. And if something looks ugly, you don't see it as ugly as more. You see it as love and you see it as learning. And so that's what I'll be doing. I'll be peeling layers back for the whole group. And then I will be using some of these very high vibrational tools like different essential oils and doing a lot with my tuning forks, like using a tuning fork. And it's just this very high vibration. And the meaning of it helps us release the wound and get one step closer to trusting that the universe is kind and raising the manifestation vibration.
Excellent. Excellent. So that's Friday night at 7 o'clock. It is not on the program. It is on the internet, but please mark it down if you'd like to participate in that healing, meditative style lecture. And what are you doing Saturday at 11:30, Rebecca?
So this Saturday at 11:30, I am specifically doing something that I call a Path to Prosperity session. And that one is, so the basic premise of this system is that all of us are divine creatures on this planet. And we're not totally in the energetic form, we're in physical form so that we experience the world very sensually. And that is kind of like a divine process to experience the world sensually. So I have something called the Path to Prosperity. Let me see if I can find it really quickly in my book. But Path to Prosperity, I'll show you. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the Zoom here, but it's a path that I'll take the clients through. It kind of looks like a snail. Yeah. And I'll take everybody through this path, and we'll see where the blocks are.
Right.
And these blocks are very specifically opened with opening the senses. So we'll do a lot of opening the senses with sound healing, with tastes, with sight, with touch. Only if people want the touch, but we'll do, or they can just, this kind of thing. So we'll open the senses. And the other thing that happens as we open the senses using these tools is what you talked about before, is very often we have a past life together somehow that is blocking our prosperity in this life. Right. So usually during one of these Path to Prosperity sessions, I very specifically go into a past life and determine what the group holds in common that's blocking their prosperity in this life. I mean, so much of the time, it's some kind of, we were our spiritual selves in a past life and something bad happened.
Yeah. It usually is like a torture, trauma, or death in a past life.
That's right. When you get a past life, you don't hear happy things.
Yeah.
But it's all in our energy now. And the more people that show up to something like that, the beautiful thing about doing these 2 sessions way at the beginning of the Expo, and I plan that with you intentionally, is they're both on manifestation and they're both on prosperity. And so what happens is that the prosperity for the whole Expo is energized and lifted, so that all the people will have prosperous healing sessions and all the vendors will have prosperous booths. So everybody leaving that session will just be more in their flow and they'll get whatever they need out of the Expo. And I did one, I think it was 2 years ago, and I'll never forget that there was a guy who came and he emailed me a week later and said, I was trying to create this website that was a different kind of futures trading. And I got this massive buzz in your Path to Prosperity session. And I went home, and over the next 3 days, I created the website.
Oh, that's crazy good.
And
yeah.
It was great. And he came for one private session after that, reiterated that story, and I never saw him again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it does. If anyone, for those people that are open to it, it can really, I remove the blocks, and then your natural flow, whatever it is, takes place.
So it looks like you've developed a bunch of books as well. I know you've written several books, and you have some card decks out as well. Can you show us them or talk about them?
Sure. I have written 15 books on Amazon, and they're up on Amazon. They're all self-help spiritual books. They're also used within this system. And the one that it was only the second book I wrote, and this one is called Divine Grids. And what this book is, a series of pre-formed crystal grids. So you have I open randomly to a grid. What this page has is an image, usually some form of sacred geometry. And then this one happens to be attune my processing to love. So this one would be the crystal grid that somebody would build if they had any processing deficits or issues that they were experiencing. It just happened to be the one that I opened. And so the healing, the affirmation is, it is safe to be smart. And so that's the interesting thing. If we hold on to something, it's because we don't feel safe for the opposite. So this grid in particular, it tells you which crystals to place where, and it helps you align to release your processing and feel safe to be smart.
Well, let me ask a question. If somebody purchased that book and wanted to do a crystal grid, because it sounds very interesting, do they rip the pages out, or how would they do that? Because the book is full.
A great question. So actually at the Expo, I have 2 copies of the book. I have the expensive copy that has all of the theory behind it. And then I have a much less expensive copy that just has the 80 crystal grids. So if what they wanted to do was just cut them out, it would be nice. They could do that. Okay. And that's why I've created 2 copies of it. If they didn't, then they could photocopy it and then put the grids on.
That sounds like the way to go too, because everyone has a printer. They could just copy it, and then they would have, one that they could work with. And
so people sometimes come back and say, I cut too many pages out, but I photocopy them. Yeah. And my students all have these made up, and actually I give one away for free at the Expo, the piece on there.
Yeah.
And now I try to.
Do we use crystals that are readily available for those grids?
Yes. And then I try and, I make friends with the crystal vendors and say, I'm going to be sending people your way who want to do different crystal grids. Awesome. And this book is one thing that people always come back to me Expo after Expo and said, I gave this grid to my kid. I gave this grid to my mom. Yeah. Because it's a nice piece. It's beautiful when you put it together. And you can just lay it on a table and put crystals on it. Or you can put it in a shadow box like I have and give it out as a gift. And that energy will just be there. And if the person who accepts the gift is willing to accept this beautiful energy, then it will help them. And
sounds great. It sounds like a great gift that everyone can use.
Yes. So this is actually one of my biggest sellers, because if you look up crystal grids or divine grids on the internet, you will find me. And so sometimes it's harder with a topic that's a little bit more generic, but yeah. So, and so I have a bunch of books, and I wrote these all last year. Here's an example of one. This is called Plant Medicine. And this is a new age look on how to use essential oils. So it's got every essential oil that's popular, and then it says, what are the healing benefits? What emotions does it balance? And what's the spiritual opening? And since I channel everything, this is new information. It's not dissimilar from older information. It's just got a new age energy. How do we shift into a more gentle place? And I wrote 4 of these last year because I channel, I can write very quickly. Right. And I wrote plant medicine, crystal medicine, sound medicine, and food love medicine, about the spiritual properties of food.
Sounds
Uh,
great. Sounds great.
and what's interesting is one of my biggest sellers at the expo is my mystical kitten tarot deck. This, people come up and everybody wants to look at this one, as well as the doggy love tarot deck. These are traditional tarot with pictures of cats and dogs. And I do traditional tarot readings with the beautiful love energy of dogs and mystical energy of cats. And this is really fun. So I'm doing those readings.
I think people will really love them because everyone loves their pets, right?
That's right. And, and I found I'm a dog person. So I wrote the dog deck and I'm at an expo and people are coming up and said, "Where's the cat deck? Where's the cat deck?" And I'm like, "I don't know cats." But then I opened myself up and then the cats, boy, were they chitty chatty. And people have a preference. They go zoom towards the cat deck or zoom towards the dog deck.
Yeah.
I have a lot of other beautiful products too, and it's a wonderful place for me to showcase them.
Excellent. So to summarize, Rebecca, then you'll have all of your books and cards at your booth, and you'll be doing little mini readings and healings throughout the weekend, and then you're doing 2 talks, 7 o'clock on Friday night, and then 11:30 on Saturday.
Yes.
All right. Anything else we should talk about? There's so much to talk about, but
so it's I think we're good. I think I'm just really excited about it, and I love the weekend, and I love it when it's a little quieter on Friday night, and I love it when it's really busy at Saturday at 2:00. It's always an experience, and the right people come talk to me.
It's exciting. And my goal is to make it down the whole row before I have to turn around. I never really get a chance to chit chat or shop or talk to anyone. So my goal is to really get to know everybody this time and spend time with the vendors themselves. So it'll be great.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you April 26th.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.